Well, there's two reasons that we use him, and we use him frequently when it comes to foreign affairs and when it comes to Ukraine. And that's number one, because he's very, very good at it. He understands the subject, he understands what's going on. The other thing is, I'm kind of proud of the fact that he teaches at North Dakota State University. In other words, right here in our backyard. That's Dr. and Professor Thomas Ambrosio. Doc, good to have you back on Down the Road.
Glad to be here. We're making this a regular occurrence. I think, Putin is just bringing people together, you and me, and quite possibly the world, on one side or the other.
Yeah, I think we both know what the lead story is on any news cast as we go forward here. Let me ask you this, because this is a question that's being asked, and the Biden administration, in my personal opinion, isn't answering it correctly. And it's this: is what Vladimir Putin has done so far, is this an invasion of Ukraine?
That is, the administration won't call it that. They're saying it is the beginning of an invasion. So they're not willing to go full I word. This actually reminds me of what kind of the gaffe that Biden had last month, which was talking about a limited incursion. This is much more like that. The idea, I think, of an invasion would be that Putin would move into Ukrainian-held territory, and then you would start seeing fighting there. However, this is a significant escalation. Russia has recognized the Eastern Ukrainian separatists as independent countries. There's some dispute. The Kremlin saying one thing, but I think everyone else is saying the other, that Russia has already started moving troops in. So is this an invasion? Yeah, I mean, they are going to be permanently basing Russian troops, and part of the agreement with these regions is that they're going to be permanently basing Russian troops in them. So, yeah, I mean, this is, for all intents and purposes, an invasion, but it's not the truly kinetic, as they use in the military, the truly military operation that we had feared. So it's actually, if Putin was to do a thing, this was actually the smallest thing he could have done, which is move troops into areas that are already out of control of Ukraine.
So let me ask you this. Is the lack of, now use my personal opinion that it's an invasion as the premise of the question, is the lack of admission, is the lack of just saying, look, he did what we told him not to do, is that coming from NATO? Is that coming from the Biden administration? And what good does it do NATO diplomatically?
I think it's probably coming from our allies. Even though President Biden talks about we're all on the same page, we're all united, the reality is that we're not. Germany is certainly way softer on Russia than any of the other countries in NATO or any of our other allies. So trying to piece something together is difficult. And President Biden had talked about, if there's an invasion, we're going to throw this massive sanctions on Russia. But what we saw here was something far more limited. And our response is, President Biden talked about serious sanctions. These are not serious sanctions. These are, again, if Putin did the smallest thing he could do, we're doing the smallest thing we could do. We're just kind of right now a slap on the wrist. But the idea, I think, behind the White House's move is, look, don't go any further, then we're going to get serious. And I think they're trying to hold out hope for diplomacy. But now we're seeing new reports, and there is a boy who cried wolf situation going on here, where it seems like every day it's imminent invasion. Now we're hearing more words about imminent invasion coming out of the administration. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
So let's take that premise, because you said on these very airways that this was going to happen. You didn't limit it to these outlying areas, but you do believe that there will be an invasion of Ukraine. Do you still believe that now, or did Vladimir Putin do enough to save face and he can put it in reverse, knowing that individuals in his country, high-ranking individuals, believe that what they're doing is quite dangerous to their economy.
I'm quite frankly torn at the moment. On the one hand, I do believe that this situation was one in which we could all save face. Biden could say ultimately he stopped a full invasion of Ukraine. Biden could say Putin can say he secured these areas. But if we listen to Putin's speech or read it, probably it's really long. But Putin gave this really expansive view of the illegitimacy in his eyes of Ukraine and the threat that Ukraine poses to Russia. And I don't see how he can satisfy that, kind of those claims with what he did today. And again, we're seeing reports. I have multiple screens here with news saying that possibly he's moving more into attack positions, and we're seeing increasing shelling across the border between Ukraine and these breakaway regions. And now you're starting to kill Russian troops, not just local Russians.
I know the question I have here requires a long answer, and I only have about a minute here, but I have to ask this. The one thing that Vladimir Putin has made clear is he doesn't want Ukraine. He didn't want Crimea. He didn't want these folks to be in NATO. The Bush administration, George W. Bush, opened that window and spoke to the fact that these democracies would be welcome in NATO, any democracy. Condoleezza Rice, his Secretary of State, put it in reverse afterwards. She was there in the beginning, but she said that might have been a mistake. How did that play into what we're watching play out right now?
It made Russia even more fearful of its situation in the East than was probably necessary. If I was Vladimir Putin, I would see the situation with the possibility of Ukraine joining NATO as an existential threat, not just militarily, but also in terms of Russian identity, which is so deeply tied to Ukraine. And we can't forget that. Regardless of whether or not we think his history lesson was wrong, he believes it, and a lot of Russians believe it as well.
Dr. Ambrosio, thank you. We're going to call again. This thing is going to be going on for a while, and keep teaching those great students at NDSU, and keep helping teach us as well. I appreciate you coming on.